Welcome back to Beyond the Headline, everyone, where we discuss the realities of launching, scaling, and investing in a business. I am so excited that you're with us today because I'm here with Randy Ross, the co-founder and CEO of Cinematique. Thank you so much for being with me today, Randy.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody.
Randy, we have to start out with you introducing us to your work because it's pretty incredible.
For all of you that don't know, I'm the founder and CEO of Cinematique, and we have a video platform that essentially changes every video into a multidimensional user experience. And it's a simple iframe that you can embed anywhere like any of the other video platforms. While people are experiencing this video, they can reach out and tap or touch on anything as it's moving across screen, and they'll get more about that saved in their boutiques, and they can visit it, at any time during the film or after the film, and they can even save it, similar to Pinterest, so they have these items. And so, for everyone who's ever been watching a video and wanted to know what's that, where that beautiful location is, or what's that amazing sweater, or who's that great performer in the video, that's now part of the video experience, part of the video format as Cinematique sees it.
What gets me so excited about Cinematique, Randy, is when I first learned about it, I was very selfish and thought of it as a consumer. I thought, hey, next time I see something, I can click it and know right away where I can get it from or where that place is. And as you and I were just talking, and you dive into the power that this puts in the hands of brands, it's really going to be a huge game changer. Can you give us some of those examples?
Yeah, we have sort of this fundamental ideology around here that this is, not about click to buy or click to shop or, something that you slap over top of your video. But it's actually a fundamental evolution of the video format itself, and that its applications run far beyond monetizing the product in your video. And we always talk about the examples and the clients that are using it for dynamic education, for students to point out what they're interested in videos on their own time or in a classroom setting. They can watch these videos and click on the things that interest them and immediately learn more. So they're furthering their education based on their interests. But it also gives the educators the ability to re-engage and send new lessons back in. So we call that dynamic education. There's dynamic narrative that some of the movie studios are playing around with on Cinematique. And those would be instances where you could touch on a character in the background, and you might learn more about that character that you otherwise might have not learned in the show itself. It might have not been part of the 22-minute episode, but now you've gone off on this other tangent. You're learning about this guy you touched on in the background, potentially, his story, and going down that rabbit hole. And at the same time, the studio now knows that X amount of people are interested in that, and they can then either continue offering you narrative through the rabbit hole, or actually change the nature of the TV series and say this person needs to be more of a lead character. So it's almost like direct feedback. You're getting user feedback while they're watching it, and they're gaining value from it as well. I think in a very sort of simple sense, it can be used to educate people about the fabrication of a garment, the location that someone's in, the information about a portion of the world that might be otherwise people might not have known about, having not had this technology. Things that go beyond clicking and buying, and that's really what's going to evolve this technology. That's what's going to provide value to me and you as viewers, so that we're going to come back, continue to interact, we're going to continually gain benefit, and inside of that, when we see something we'll like, we'll buy it.
What's so fascinating about that, Randy, is as a brand, like you said, I'm going to gain that insight, and there's a lot that I can include for someone to click on that I can't necessarily say during a video. So if it's an education video, and like you said before, there's a sun and there's alligators, and everyone's clicking on the sun, then we know, hey, they're interested in the sun versus I can't really be in there explaining, so this is a sun and this is what it does to young children.
Yeah, I mean, the the one thing we don't want to ever do is just get one point of interest from someone and say, "Hey, click here." Is when you
Oh
say, "Hey,"
no, bad,
you,
bad.
you just say, "Click here," and now you know either you got one answer, you got yes or no. They either clicked or they didn't. But when you say, "Hey, touch on anything on screen as it moves," which includes the sun, which includes the river, which includes the alligator, you really can then say, "Okay, they had the ability to touch on anything, and they touched on the sun. So all these kids are interested in that. Let's educate them, about the sun, and maybe we send them, 30-second videos so that they can consume them easily. And we're not bombarding them with minutes and minutes of content, but we're actually educating on what they need. And if we want to get them the lesson about the wildlife or the alligator, so to speak, we can actually feed that through the sun and say, hey, this is how the sun affects wildlife. And this is how the sun plays into the food chain. And now, based on their interests, you're getting them all the education they need. It's sort of a very simplified version of it, but we're doing some experiments with some science teachers in a couple of museums around town here in New York to really, get some practical understandings of how we would implement this, from the education perspective specifically.
And you've discussed before that in general, this is a new learned behavior. And I hadn't thought of it that way before because had Michelle not told me to click on the video, I probably wouldn't have. What are you guys doing and what are the brands that you guys are working with doing to teach people, hey, you can click on this and learn more?
We have, sort of the standard stuff. We have, a product tour on the actual player. So if you've never touched on a video before, there'll be a little animation at the top of the video that pops down and says, hey, this video is touchable. Click here to take the tour. And that, if you click on that, that'll give you a little tour of the actual player, so you'll learn about where all the stuff you touched is stored and how you can save it, all that kind of stuff. But really, the big value comes when the content creators or the publishers, or whoever's putting this video out into the world, actually says it in their communications. So beneath the video, they say, hey, this video is touchable. Or in the in the poster frame of the video itself, that creates good results. We've seen really amazing results from brands that are doing emailers, and in emailers, they're educating people before they actually click to the link. So, it's sort of a group effort to make sure that everyone knows that they have the ability to touch on the video. And then the actual behavioral change is a lot, happens quite quickly. It's a lot simpler than you think it would be. The second you know that you can touch, people just, it takes them about 5 seconds and they start interacting.
One of the things that really excites me about Cinematique, and you and I were just speaking about it, is the immense potential that you have for brands, for users. And when you think about, hey, our responsibility is the future of video, it's pretty intense. Walk us through some of the things you guys are visualizing over the next couple of years.
Well, I think first, we have to get people to adopt this. We have to get them to understand what it is. And, I think we're doing really well in the specific verticals that we've attacked thus far. And we've got to get to a point where it's commonplace, where all of us understand that video is touchable and interactive. And then, beyond that, there's a whole world of essentially the ripple effect that happens once you've defined what it is or shown your interests in a video. So if you touch on 10 things in a video, and those are now yours to keep, what's the ripple effect that happens long after the video has gone away, long after it's, we've seen it once, it's become uninteresting to us, and we're probably never going to watch that video again. But we've got these 10 or 15 things that we got from the video that are now ours, and so the ripple effect comes in re-engagement from the brands. The ripple effect comes in, hey, it's Christmas time, and I want to actually go revisit these things and now purchase them or share them with my friends. Um, so there's a whole world of functionality beyond actually watching the video that we actually think is, because it generates with the video experience itself, is part of the evolution of video. And so in the coming years, we'll all come to think and expect that video is not just this thing that we pressed play on and watched it, but video is actually this living, breathing thing that we're gaining connections and relationships and items from. And those now have their own living, breathing, back and forth and relationships to them. And, hopefully, users have, hundreds, if not thousands of items they've gained from videos over the past, however long, couple of years. And that's the value of video, not
Not the
necessarily
video.
what you just saw at the moment that's now gone by. And we're all cinematographers here. We're all filmmakers. We have nothing but incredible reverence for the art of moving picture and the cinematic language. And that's why we started this whole thing. We were all filmmakers thinking, how do we add value to the film and not interrupt the magic of cinema? And so, by no means do we discredit what actually goes on in a human when they're immersed in a piece of cinema. But that does end, and it sort of fades. And what are you left with? And currently we're left with that sort of in our hearts and minds. It's something that resonates within us. Like, I saw that great film, and I remember this great part, or how cool that jacket was, or whatever it is that resonates with you, from a materialistic perspective or from an emotional perspective. Those things sort of are lost on the inside, and now we have this ability to capture them and actually save them on the outside and say, here's the hundreds of thousands of things that I experienced in films that have since gone away. And that's truly what we see the future of video being.
I'm really glad that you shared it in that way, because Sarah, who works with your brands and partnerships, says that you're always encouraging the individuals that you work with to ask, now what?
Yeah, yeah. It's sort of, she's saying it from two perspectives. One, so as a content creator, you've gone and created this beautiful, branded piece, or this beautiful episodic piece, or whatever it may be, and you know that people are watching video, and if you want to keep people immersed, you have to create video these days. And you've gone and done that, and it's really beautiful, and you're ready to put it out, and you have a great distribution plan. Now what? What do you get back from it? And what are you hoping to get back from it? And to be honest, a large portion of the people that, the entities or companies that we come in contact with, they don't necessarily know what the ROI is, or what they're looking for, what they're trying to gain, because their job was just to produce something beautiful and get it out there in sort of a generic brand equity kind of way. And we always ask them, now what? What do you want back from this? And a lot of them respond, well, I don't know. What do I want back from this? And so it becomes our job to say, hey, what if we could tell you from an immersion standpoint, that what people were really interested in, what caught their eye. What if we could obviously tell you from a click-through and a sell-through standpoint what products people took interest in and then purchased. And we start sort of just defining it for them. And of course, everyone goes, yeah, that would be great. But before that, they hadn't thought, now what? And the other perspective is from the consumer's perspective, from the viewer, which is sort of ties into what we were talking about before. As a viewer, now what? And so you're seeing the video. Typically, video gets consumed and sort of pushed to the bottom of the feed, or scrolled down on, and you just consume it and it's done. now what? Then what? What did you get from it? And so, a lot of times we'll just say to people, just touch on a couple things, and you'll see it feels different. You actually got stuff, and so it's in its own weird way, it's a more gratifying way to watch all this content that's being thrown at us.
What's so cool too is that you guys said this previously. You can get data from someone who's 3 years old or someone who's 103 years old because anyone can click on a video, and brands haven't had that knowledge before.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's really truthful data. It's really
What a
instinctual
great way to
data.
put it.
It's we it is native data. It's coming through natively because you're interested in the video experience, and you're sort of providing instinctual data. But I like to use the word truthful because if someone's not interested, they're not going to touch. And you know, it's just easier and more practical to see what people are interested in than trying to synthesize all this big data that's happening around video. And I'm not saying that it's better or worse. It's different. It's a different type of data, but it's a lot more truthful and a lot more practical and straightforward than trying to say, okay, we put these videos out into the world, and then we also placed at the same time these ads beside those videos. And at 2:35 in the video, we might have seen more click-through from the ads that were beside the video if they were to the right product. And then, you're starting to synthesize all this data, and it gets confusing. And brands have entire departments that are trying to whittle that down into something comprehensive, something that they can just put forth in front of everyone and say, hey, this is how well we did. And when you start at truthful data, like this sort of instinctual touch data, you get to it a lot quicker.
It just lends back to my initial reaction, the reaction I have every time I look into your guys' stuff. I always say, this is nuts, because I can't believe it. On that note, Randy, you and I were talking about this before. This is a big, big mission that you guys have and that you've taken on. Take me through your everyday, and when 100 ideas are coming your way of things you can do, how do you choose which one to focus on?
Oh man, I'll probably have to get Brian, our CTO, in here. He'll tell you exactly how that happens. It's being organized, being compartmentalized, and really understanding your fundamental goals is integral. You'll just never do it with a concept this size without that. So we drill down constantly into what the fundamental goal is, because it's so easy to get excited or lost in trends or new technologies or things that you could leverage, or new models, be it biz dev or financial, that you could get lost in and excited about, and they may actually be pulling you away or causing you to sort of lose focus on your fundamental goals. And so if you're not constantly drilling down on those, and you don't have people that are going back to square one and asking that question almost daily with a concept this size, you can drift off into la la land pretty quickly. So that's one thing. And then having the discipline to say, I know that every department in this company has a bazillion ideas of how they could, where we could take this thing. We've all got to sit down and have the arguments or have the conversations or whatever it means to come up with a very disciplined roadmap as to the very best way to maximize the potential of this idea. And does that mean, road mapping out our functionalities? Does it mean only spending money on one industry and owning that industry before we go into other industries? Really sort of making sure that while you've got this great idea that could be, the most powerful thing to happen to video since video, that you sustain as a company, that you're still alive tomorrow. And so going back to that sort of very practical idea of survival and saying, let's come up with a roadmap. And it may mean that we might not get to our crazy fancy, this idea we've been talking about and prototyping and ideating about for the last, 6 months. That might not actually come to fruition for 2 years because we have to build this a certain way and sustain a certain way. And so it's discipline and integrity. I think when you have integrity, that fundamental purpose, it sort of it allows you to get real about some of the ideas you get attached to personally or get attached to as a group, or the idea of those things coming out in the public and you getting to say that you were behind them. All that stuff gets sort of put aside when you say, okay, we have this undying integrity to our original, fundamental concept and fundamental ideals here. Are we willing to lose that thing, this integrity and this company because we want to, take this sort of Hail Mary pass on this one function that we think will be really cool? And obviously the answer is no. And so it's a lot of getting real with your team and people being real with each other. And we've gotten good at that.
I love three words that you used in that answer. The first one was survival, second one is real, third one is integrity. And they wrap up into the everyday of running a business and surviving it. Because on the outside, when I go to your site and I see some of your partners, even in the early days, like, oh wow, Stella McCartney, Kate Spade, they must be doing really well. It's super hard to be a founder and to run a startup.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of got a brief introduction through filmmaking. Every film, Kyle and I always joke that every film is its own little startup. And
Oh,
the only the saving grace is that most of them only run for you're in pre-production for a couple months and then you're shooting for under a month and then hopefully you're wrapped in a couple months after that. So it's limited, and at the end you're going for a final product. Whereas especially in tech, it's always evolving. There's no end. There's no finished. There's just, can you continue to put forth what it's asking for? And yeah, it's hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. That's for sure.
how do you cope with it?
Hmm. Uh, I would say, I guess the easiest answer is I'm very physical. Like physically, uh, I train Muay Thai, which is Thai kickboxing, and I'm always going for a run. Going out and doing physical things, trying to actually physically move myself into different places if I can get away to a lake house or a cottage or something like that. Like actually doing it, and I find the physical regimen allows you to keep up with what's demanded of yourself, what you demand of yourself inside of the corporate regimen. It just keeps that fight alive in you. For me, it's directly equivalent. Like I fight so I can fight, and it's really fun like that. But I think having wonderful people around you that are as devoted and as sensitive to how hard it is really important. I think we all, it's definitely a family here. It's definitely a family of young entrepreneurs who understand that when you're trying to accomplish something with limited resources at the scale that we're trying to accomplish, everyone has to understand how heated it might get and you know how the hours it might take and the leeway you might need to give people because you truly understand you're sensitive to what's going on and how that's going to affect the rest of their lives. And I think if we didn't have the team that we have, we wouldn't be here today. It's incredible what we pulled off as a team. And I would say, personally, for me, it's a really supportive family and this physical regimen, and then having this family aspect, this team aspect, a group of people that you can rely on is definitely integral. Wouldn't happen otherwise.
I'm glad you explained it in the sense that everyone needs to understand the sensitivities of what you're doing. And sometimes, if you've been working on something for 6 months and you're so married to it, and like you just said, it's just not in the budget and you're going to have to do it in 2 years. How do you communicate with your team to have that level of transparency? Are you a CEO who's going to, everything's on the table, or do you think that as a leader you have to, shelter people a little bit?
I think you have to be sensitive about that. You have to know.
Tough job, man. Tough job.
You have to put things on the table, so that everyone knows what you're thinking about, and what you're not thinking about at that time. Um, but then there's other things that might be counterproductive to their progress if they have to worry about them. Like our fundraising, or the some of the biz dev issues, or um, HR, finance, organizational stuff that no one need worry about. Uh, you know, Contrary to my personal family back in Toronto, you don't need to talk about everything at the dinner table. And so you sort of have to pick and choose your battles as to, is this something that everyone should know about so they can actually tell me how wrong I am? And I'd be happy for them to tell me that, because that's why they're here. They're all brilliant. And I should just stop, putting my energy towards this idea, even if just for now. Or is this something that is actually going to defocus them if I start worrying them with it? And so, yeah, that too is a sensitivity that Kyle and I deal with all the time.
When it comes to, like you were just saying, having an idea and sharing with them, to see if you should explore it more, how do you empower everyone on your team to feel comfortable saying to the CEO, hey, Randy, that's really not a good idea?
Uh, it's a two-part answer. One, you have to have really strong people. Like, you have to start with people. And I'm constantly saying to people, like, you know, I'm just a guy who had an idea, who wants to bring it to fruition. There's no way. If I knew everything about this, it would mean it's already done and out there, and we
True.
were copying someone else. So there's no way that I know. And you guys are all brilliant in your field. You're all brilliant in every respect. So by all means, tell me I'm nuts. And I joke about it. I play with it, and I can read the looks on their faces when I say certain things. But you have really strong people that given the permission, will not only tell you you're nuts, but they'll have justification and be able to back it up, or pivot it into, the way you presented it is nuts, but I actually see the brilliance, and here is how this becomes a working, valuable part of our product. And Brian does it to me all the time. He's like, I know what you're getting at, and I see what you're seeing. But if we shift it like this and work it in this way, now we're talking about an actual, uh, you know, functional construct that exists already, that people are going to understand. And what you're actually talking about is this. Let's do that. And had I not had the bravery to sort of bring up something that could be borderline irrational, or sort of this sort of whimsical version of something, I also wouldn't have got the you know the feedback from the team saying, you've hired me to sort of not shut you down entirely, but actually tell you how we actually execute on that. And so it's I think you just can't be too serious about things. Like, everyone is, we're serious as we can be, and people take things really seriously. And so when you get into those conversations, you just have to lighten it up a little bit and be like, hey, this might be crazy, or hey, tell me if I'm crazy, or feel free to like shoot holes in this, guys, but here's what I'm thinking, and just empower everyone to do it. But you've also got to have people that, again, are sensitive to how they respond, and that they respond with in a positive manner, with uh, some sort of backup as to why they don't see the vision, or how they actually see it materializing.
As you engage with those responses, whether it's from your team, whether it's from an investor client that you're working with, you shared that you guys are very agile and very active when it comes to new ideas and testing things. What's that like?
Um, that brings tension too. It's
Oh man.
because it's good because we get, at the end of the day, we all walk out of here and we high five because like we know what we've accomplished. But in that accomplishing it, you know, we had a plan. We were attached to the idea. We all thought it was great, or we wouldn't have come up with it in the first place. And then throughout the course of the day, the plan gets ruined because you've got this new idea, and the idea gets ruined because you've got this new idea. And so there's a lot of emotionality attached to it. And sometimes pivoting screws people's schedules up, or sometimes switching, or just not liking the way something turns out. You're prototyping it and it's just not good enough. That happens, and you go back to the drawing board, and you maybe get a little bit behind schedule, or um, you know, a lot of times it actually leads to a better product decision. But all these things, again, play into a team that needs to be sensitive that, hey, while we're being innovators, because everyone wants to call themselves innovative, but like, you know what I mean? It's everyone wants to say it, but doing it's
Well, I
hard.
work at a startup, so.
Yeah, so it's
Mhm.
like it's one thing to put in your marketing materials that we're an innovative company. It's another thing to like sit in a room with people and say no, not good enough, no, not out of the box enough, or no, we want to make this. Is this really up to like our standards yet? And that's innovating, and that's hard. That comes with tension and miscommunication, and then communication, and better communication, and sometimes transparency, and sometimes too much transparency. But we do it all the time, and I think that's why our product is at the place that it's at, where people are actually seeing that this could change video.
Well, I mean,
Comes
one
down
way
to these conversations.
one way you can do is just say you're an innovative startup that's the Uber of X. You're set. I just came up with your new company description. No
Right.
more work. Randy, before we go, I'd love to chat about just a few life questions. I mean, these ones are three fun ones. The first one, if you could teleport anywhere in the world right now, where would you go?
Anywhere in the
I mean, I
world.
guess you'd go to outer space too. I once had someone say Mars.
Oh wait, so outer space is included?
It wasn't until Nitesh Banta from General Catalyst said that he's already been places on Earth and he's going to Mars.
Oh, um, I think I want to get. It's a two-part answer. If I was going anywhere on Earth, I had a brief experience in Thailand, and I need to go back there, um, and spend a whole bunch of time. But then I also like to be in outer space in the middle of nowhere. I love those movies you watch where you're in the middle of nowhere. 2001, or what was that? The more recent George Clooney,
Gravity, right?
Gravity. That concept of being so far away from everything and just in complete quiet and silence. That's somewhere I want to be. I want to see what that feels like. That'd be cool.
All right, that was a pretty good one. Wasn't expecting the gravity one. Second one, if you were an ice cream flavor, what flavor would you be? I know, now I'm asking the hard ones.
I would say I would be um, vanilla caramel rainbow sprinkle gummy bear with mint in it.
Lot going on there.
Yeah, that's off the top of my head. There's probably a better answer, but I'm going with that one.
All right, we'll stick with that. Last one. What's one question that you've always wanted to be asked? Personal, professional, athletic achievement from when you were 7 that nobody's ever asked you?
Wow. Uh, I don't think anyone's asked me who my heroes are.
Really? Who are your heroes?
Um, my dad and Brad Selwood, my hockey coach from when I played Little League, Steve Jobs, and Michael Jordan.
Wow, what a great way to end. And such a great combination. Well, Randy, I can't thank you enough for spending time with me and for sharing the realities of what it's like to be in a startup because I think we miss that a lot of the times. How can everyone stay up to date with you and really learn more about Cinematique as well as how they can use it at their company?
Well, everyone should check out cinematique.com, and you can, play with the technology. There's a lot of fashion videos on there. You can see how it works. And then, we really communicate through our Facebook, our Instagram, um, and we are very close to having the Cinematique company blog set up where you'll be able to see, us traveling around and presenting the technology at different places. But look for Cinematique on Instagram and Facebook, and that's how you really be able to keep up with where we're at.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been fun.